What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of Benstant Reaction, an instant reaction to a game, trades, a big news, whatever it is going on in the sports world. If there is something big happening, we want to get it to you as fast as we can. In this edition of Benstant Reaction, we are talking Cardinals, 49ers. The Arizona Cardinals go on the road and stun the San Francisco 49ers. If you heard me in my preview, I had talked about, listen, this is a game that I feel like the Arizona Cardinals could easily come out and win. Now, they didn't easily win this game, and it wasn't something where I ever thought that this team was going to steamroll them 40-10. But when you get embarrassed at home in front of, on a national audience, when you get embarrassed at home, I just expect you to come out with your hair on fire the next week. Now, there's still some issues with this Cardinals team. They have trouble scoring points after the first possession, and that goes to Drew Petzing. It just seems like at times, after he gets a little bit of a lead, he goes very conservative. It's to the point where I might want Drew Petzing with trailing in a game than I would rather him leading in a game. Feels like he gets way too conservative, doesn't get cued enough at times. And then you have later on in the game, when I feel like you can put this game away by icing it yourself, giving it to your franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray, and you don't do so. You instead wait for third down, which not going to kill him on. James Conner was phenomenal in this game. Before I get deeper into the Cardinals, here's what I'll say about the Brock Purdy-led 49ers. This is what I mean. It's just tough. When you spend the entire summer upset about contracts, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, or not Deebo Samuel, but Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, when you have friction in the locker room between the front office, between the players, and everyone isn't bought in, it is already incredibly hard to get back to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. Outside of the Patriots dynasty, outside of the Chiefs dynasty, it's nearly impossible to do so. So what you want to do is limit distractions. So whether it's contract concerns or injuries before the season even starts, these are the issues with the 49ers. The offensive line is okay. It's not amazing. Jordan Mason is awesome, and he's led the league or near leading the league in rushing yards. You still wish you had Christian McCaffrey back there. But Brock Purdy still has a slew of guys. There is no longer the excuse of players are injured. Deebo Samuel's in this game, wasn't used enough. Jawan Jennings played in this game. He got banged up a little bit, but for the most part played in this game. Brandon Ayuk had a stellar performance. George Kittle had a stellar performance. But even more so, the Brock Purdy issue, there were times where the San Francisco 49ers could just take a hold of this game, and they never did. And it's credit to the Arizona Cardinals, and more specifically, Jonathan Gannon. You know, coming off of last week's horrendous performance against the Washington Commanders, which that's what it was. Hopefully, it's a burn-the-tape game. Hopefully, the Cardinals figure it out, weather the storm a little bit, and potentially try to still make a run at least a wild card berth. I'm not asking for them to win 7 of their next 8, but just make it competitive. Here's where the defense comes for Jonathan Gannon. This defense is atrocious. I mean, it is awful. There's guys on this defense that if you asked the casual NFL fan on the side of the road who they would thought you were making up players. But credit to Jonathan Gannon. This is why whenever the argument comes up of Jonathan Gannon should be on the hot seat, it's just not true. He's getting way more out of this defense than anyone in the NFL might. The Arizona Cardinals are lucky to have Jonathan Gannon as their head coach. Now, the jury is still out on Monty Ossenford. But this defense that is atrocious, that got tore up by the Washington Commanders, that got gashed up in the second half of the Bills, and was largely pretty good against Los Angeles Rams. Jonathan Gannon continues to get more out of less. Budda Baker was outstanding in this game again, leading the team in tackles. Mack Wilson had not an interception, but I believe a fumble recovery in this game. And Kaiser White sealing the deal for the Arizona Cardinals. The Jonathan Gannon hot seat narrative should have never been a thing, even after getting blown out at home against the Washington Commanders. He has only showed that he has gotten more with less in his tenure as the Arizona Cardinals head coach. Now, next year, with better personnel and another draft under their belt, if it's still like this, then yeah, you have to at least hold Jonathan Gannon accountable. But what this defense is so turnover reliant. That's what it is. This team needs to be able to pick off the ball, to get fumbles, and to not waste opportunities when those opportunities are presented to them. And Jonathan Gannon continues to get more with less, as well as, do you remember how awful it was with penalties on this team under Cliff Kingsbury? This team committed their first penalty in, I think, the third quarter. They're a top 5 team in the NFL in penalties. What does that mean? It means they're disciplined. It means there's accountability. And it means although this team lacks a ton of talent, there is a standard that every player has not only bought into, but holds other players to that standard. That's all you can ask of a head coach with not a lot of talent. And with the talent that he has, make the most of it. And that's what Jonathan Gannon has done. This idea that he has ever been on the hot seat, this idea that the Cardinals should ever think about replacing him thus far in his tenure is just utter nonsense. Now let's talk about what the most important aspect of this game was. To be honest with you, I didn't even care if the Cardinals lose this game. Because coming off of that Commanders game, I just thought there's no chance in bleep they could be a playoff team. There's no chance that they're going to be competitive with this personnel, whether it's on the defense, whether it's Drew Petzing. But more so than anything, we had to see something from Kyler Murray. And I have been highly critical of Kyler Murray, the offensive coordinator, the personnel, but more specifically than any of those things, Kyler. I have been very critical of him. I've got to be honest. It is so hard for me to quit Kyler Murray when he makes a throw like he did with the game on the line on 4th and 5 with the house being brought down at him, and he throws a teardrop, picture perfect dime to Marvin Harrison Jr. that kept the drive going, that continued that drive, that allowed them to be able to go ahead and put the defense on the field. And then at that point, you can't blame Kyler for the game. It's, well, the defense isn't very good. This game from Kyler Murray was 10 times more impressive than the Los Angeles Rams game. The Los Angeles Rams are beat up everywhere. It was at home. You were coming off of a very feisty game against the Buffalo Bills. The season did not look bleak. But when you're coming off of a game that you didn't perform very well in, and you got demolished by your former head coach and the Washington Commanders at home, and you followed up with the performance where it's not going to light up the stat sheet, but if you watched the game, you saw how important Kyler was. 195 yards, a touchdown, and the ability to run the ball with 7 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. And at times, I watched Kyler check out of reads. I watched him check into other plays. I watched him just completely destroy the narrative that he can't read a defense. Tom Brady pointed it out, but you could see it even if you were a casual NFL fan. He dialed up exactly what the defense was doing and constantly checked out of a play and made the defense pay. Kyler Murray was way more impressive in this game, even if the stat sheet doesn't say so, than he was against the Los Angeles Rams. It is incredibly hard with your back against the wall, with the season hanging in the balance, with everyone wondering after last week's abysmal performance against the Washington Commanders, if you are indeed a franchise quarterback and you go on the road in the hottest game, and if I'm not mistaken, recorded history in Santa Clara, and defeat the defending NFC champions, who were mostly healthy outside of Christian McCaffrey. That's impressive. And being able to read the defense, dissect it, and make plays where it matters. And I already said it, but I just got to harp on this again. It is so hard for me to quit Kyler Murray when he makes the play on 4th and 5, dropping back on his back foot with the house coming down his throat, that being the 49ers defense, and drops a picture-perfect throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. that would end up basically winning the game. It's so hard for me to quit Kyler when he does that. There are not many quarterbacks in the NFL that make that throw, and Kyler made it. And it's what just continues to suck me right back into Kyler Murray. But here's what I will say, because I have to be fair. Kyler Murray's questions have never been, at least to me, he can't read a defense, because he absolutely can. We saw that against the San Francisco 49ers. Has never been, he's too short. That's a fair criticism, but he's still the fastest player on the field in most games and is incredibly accurate enough to where that usually cancels out. It's never been, at least this year, that he's not mature. It's just been consistency. The number one question for Kyler Murray has always been consistency. We have the Rams game where he plays phenomenally. And then the very next week against the Lions, he turtle shells. Very next week against the Commanders, turtle shells. And then he goes on the road and makes the biggest play of the game to Marvin Harrison Jr. on 4th and 5 and beats the San Francisco 49ers. I cannot go insane over Kyler Murray's performance, even though I think it was better than the performance against the Los Angeles Rams, given the circumstances and given the fact that the season was hanging in the balance. Make no mistake, I thought this was a fabulous game from Kyler Murray, even though the stat sheet doesn't say so. But all I can say to Kyler is, that's cool, man. Do it again. That's all I can say. Because my questions for Kyler Murray have never been accuracy. It's never been stature. It's never been he can't read a defense. It's never been any of those nonsense views that people who don't watch the games say about Kyler Murray and then make video game jokes about him. It's always been consistency. So coming off of what will be a great game against the San Francisco 49ers on the road and defeating the NFC defending champions, my response to Kyler Murray is, that was cool. Now do it again. Because we have to see consistency from Kyler Murray. The biggest question for this team this year is not anywhere on the field outside of quarterback. I know how good Kyler Murray can be. That's why I've defended him, but that's also why I've held him accountable. So this game, in which I thought he played pretty well in, that's cool, Kyler. Now do it again. That is the ultimate question for Kyler Murray. Can he do this on a week-in, week-out basis? I lean towards yes, but it's not a definitive yes. Overall, really great win for the Cardinals. Saving the season. You did not want to go in to week 6 against the Green Bay Packers and then say, well, great. You're 1-4. The season's over. You're just waiting for the NFL draft. I didn't want to look at mock drafts in early October. Big win that saves the season. And now you kind of think of it like this if you're a Cardinals fan. Well, we always wanted to be 2-2 through 4 weeks. We kind of thought we were going to lose the Niners game. Now you're just 2-3 and you lost to the Commanders, but you beat the 49ers. Everything changes again next week if you beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. I'm not exactly confident they can do so. If I'm being honest, I'd probably pick the Green Bay Packers. But at least now, at this point in the season, it's not, well, here we go again. We're just waiting for the draft. That is not the case for the Arizona Cardinals. Good win for Jonathan Gannon. Great win for Kyler Murray. And this was the first complete-ish game I've seen from the Arizona Cardinals. We just have to continue to see some consistency from this team, from the defense, from the offense, from the OC, but more specifically out of everything else, Kyler Murray.